Time for another long one. Um, I think it's time for a new party. To be fair, it's probably been time for a new party for a while. Um, but the dichotomy of our political system is asinine at this point. On one side, you have the Republicans, who hypothetically are fiscally conservative and socially conservative representation of the conservative part of the country, right? The people who are like, hey, calm the fuck down. Things have worked this way. Not for everybody, not all the time, but they're getting better. Let's slow the fucking roll. We don't need to be fucking legalizing robot fucking. Like, in general, just let's fucking slow down. And they love sucking corporate cock. Um, and blaming everything on the economy. Like, they're not 50 fucking percent responsible for the shit show that is the economy. But you'll notice there in all of those things that they're worried about and things that they want for society, none of them were functionality for the average human being, right? Functionality for Joe and Samantha who work a 9 to 5 and want to be able to go to work, earn a reasonable fucking living, come home, raise their children, have weekends off, go to fucking, vacation once a year maybe. And that you shouldn't need to be a business owner or have 4 side hustles to make ends meet in the richest country in the fucking world. It should be very obvious to everyone, but Republicans just right? That's offshoring manufacturing in the 70s hasn't worked out great for the average American. When you think MAGA hat wear, red hat, overalls, no shirt, that's what most people think when they think of a MAGA hat wear. Those are the people working in these factories that you shut down to ship out jobs. So the reason middle America, the middle class, or the upper lower class poors are so pissed off right now is because Republicans shipped all the jobs out over the last 30 fucking years that were good paying and could provide for a family and sustain life without having to work 150 hours a week. And Democrats are too worried about fucking what everyone has between their legs and letting fucking illegal immigrants flood the fucking country that they haven't shown the middle ground any love for 10 or 20 years. And that is exactly what, by the way, November 6th of last year, 2024, was about. When you seen huge blocks of Democratic voters leave from the primary voting blocks of Democrats, women, minorities, college educated, right? LGBTQ plus. I think there's 2IA or some shit in there now. Y'all keep adding shit. I'm gonna be honest, I can't keep up. Um, there's you cannot focus on 1% of the population on the left and on this is where politics has gotten. Democrats focus on the bottom 1% of the population, the poorest, the most ostracized, the most downtrodden, and the most vilified by society, is how they see it, right? What it really is a small group of individuals who do shit that other people think is weird, and it's fine to do that shit. We just don't want you to do it in public or in children's bathrooms, right? That's all. Go at home and suck and fuck whoever you want. Just don't do it in public, all right? It's a public space. Everybody has to use it. You have to be considerate of others. So the left is determined to only represent the lower 1%, let's say, right? The poorest, the oppression Olympics, the most oppressed, the 1%. And Republicans are stuck representing the other fucking end of the spectrum, the 1%, the business owners, the billionaires, the people who run the fucking country behind the scenes with all the money. And by the way, both ends of that spectrum are backed by billionaires. Because money in politics is a fucking disaster. SCOTUS should have been dragged out of their homes and stoned by all of the fucking U.S. civilians when goddamn Citizens United was passed. When Citizens United said that companies or corporations are essentially individuals and they have rights, what the fuck are you talking about? So, the left is stuck with their head up their ass, trying to make society believe and want shit that society doesn't believe and want. 70% of Americans polled do not want to see trans athletes in female sports. Why are we still talking about it? That is a very clear fucking majority in a democratic nation. Republicans. 70% of Americans do not want to see billionaires given fucking tax breaks over and over again. Why are we still having this conversation? And until you as fucking voters start holding their feet to the fire, they're not going to change. And I don't know of another way to resolve that other than a third party. Call it the sane option, call it the common man, call it the I want to work and provide for my family and not take government handouts, but also don't want billionaires to be allowed to make fucking fiscal policy. Call it whatever you want to. Democrats had a 23% approval rating early in the year. It's now about 30%. Right now, while ICE raids are going on and protests all over the country, all 12 fucking people that showed up, the Trump administration has a 40+% approval rating. 43 to 45%, something like that. They have double the approval rating right now, doing all the shit that everybody's complaining about, and you booed him at a Commanders game the other day, but his approval rating is still double what fucking Democrats were a month or two ago, and 10 or 15 points higher than their current rating. And that's ignoring the fact that Democrats had a 58% negative approval rating, or unapproval, I guess you would call it. So 33% approve of Democrats, 58% disapprove. Meanwhile, the great orange cunt is sitting in the office, raiding homes and snatching people, still has a 40+% approval rating. Nobody likes what's happening. Nobody's happy that the way that things are being done. Then why is their approval rating higher than Democrats? And the answer is because they're happy something's being done. Why did fucking Democrats lose large portions in states where Obama won previously and Biden won previously? Because the average person who works 40 hours a week and gets a fucking paycheck was upset to see their taxes going up to pay for shit like housing illegal immigrants in fucking 5-star hotels. If you don't believe that's true, go ask any fucking news agency. I would suggest a non-US based one. Because if you go to CNN, you're going to say it's leftist and they probably didn't cover it. And if you go to Fox, you're going to say it's right wing. And of course, Fox covered it. I don't think Democrats have the ability to recover from this. I don't. They're the young people amongst liberals have been radicalized. And you are not radical enough as a Democratic Party. That's why you have 20-year-olds trying to primary your fucking, people who've been in office for 30 years or 45. And since Democrats are not radical enough for the young and have gotten aggressively too radical for anyone over the age of 30 for the most part, where is your new base coming from? Because it's not going to be motherfuckers that turn a wrench or get dirt under their fingernails. Do you know what you're doing when you supply the manual labor industry in this country with illegal immigrants to work manual labor jobs? You're artificially suppressing those wages. So where a mason today should probably be making $50 or $60 an hour, right? Because in 98 they were making $15 an hour. And maybe it's 40, right? But the average rate is still somewhere between $18 and $23 an hour, give or take, depending on where you're at. That means you could go lay block in the sun for exactly the same money that you could make standing in a Walmart handing out cards for Comcast. Or being a fucking team lead at that very same Walmart. Now, how do you suppress a skilled position's wages? Easy. You flood the market with cheap labor. One of the things that nobody, Democrats nor Republicans, want to admit is that change actually requires change. It doesn't mean that nothing else changes and we fix the thing that you're worried about at the moment, right? You cannot fix illegal immigration and not cause food prices to increase because you're removing the cheap slave labor being used to pick your fucking lettuce that's in your kava salad. You selfish cunt. Also, those immigrant farm assistants, there's a word, migrant, let's call them migrant labor forces. It's not the word I'm looking for. They're often smuggled in the country through coyotes who sexually abuse them or just take them prisoner and make them work at a deficit. Anytime you have an illegal element, you have other crimes that you, as a civilian who has never been a criminal, can't even fucking conceive of. Someone who's prior service, an ex-criminal, who regularly associates with criminals, not hangs out with and does crime with, but I know plenty of people that I know flip packs. I know plenty of people that I know are fucking robbing, thugging, right? Shoplifting. Not that I see them do it, but I know who they are. I know they don't have a job, and I see them with new shit all the time. You cannot artificially suppress the price of labor and then be surprised everyone is broke and can't fucking afford anything. The sale of the U.S. citizenry on allow us to send your job overseas and you will get your shit for 80% cheaper and you'll find a job answering a phone or being a stockbroker or being a CPA or some other shit that doesn't require getting your hands dirty and sweating. Let the poor fucking Browns do it. And whether that's illegal immigrants or fucking Southeast Asians in Malaysia or India or China, it doesn't really matter. It's all the same fucking thing. We abolished slavery in the U.S., so let's use foreign slave labor. And it's always posited as some fucking humanitarian, righteous act. The path to hell is paved with good intentions. If you do not close the southern border, you are going to continue to have people, mothers, and children trafficked, raped, and held in indentured servitude to pay off the debt of moving them here. It is not a good system. So, given that the left is only focused on the lowest, most oppressed 1%, and the right is only focused on the highest, most wealthy 1%, we need a party for everyone in the fucking middle. Everyone who goes, yeah, capitalism is good, but maybe Bezos doesn't need $1 billion yacht. Maybe a country shouldn't have had to dismantle and reassemble a fucking bridge to get this cunt his yacht. If there are people starving in the United States, why are billionaires allowed to sell all the shit that they make here, but make it all in another country where they're not paying any taxes on the production of the product? If it is manufactured here, it is taxed here. The shipping is taxed here. The gas is taxed here. The electricity to manufacture it is taxed here. The distribution of the product, taxed here. The income made by the employees that make the fucking product, taxed here. You want to know how you get a $37 trillion fucking deficit? You don't make anything in the fucking country. And yes, to everyone who's like, oh, but it would be so much more expensive. No, it wouldn't. It's going to be more expensive. About 20%, maybe 30%. Your fucking iPhone costs $2,000 to $3,000. If you can afford $2,000 or $3,000, you can afford 4. All right. No, because Apple wouldn't sell it for 20% more because they would cut their profits. Then they wouldn't sell it. Do you understand? I could make the best fucking thing in the world. But if it's $15,000, not everyone's going to carry it around in their pocket. Not everyone's going to buy a new one every year or every 2 years when their contract is up. It behooves manufacturers to keep their pricing in a range that people can afford. So, would it cost significantly more to manufacture them here? Absolutely. But guess what that means? That means Apple makes less money. It's not a bad thing. Right? They've been giving you dumbasses the same fucking phone for the last 6 years with a new camera and Animojis. Do you remember that one? Their entire pitch for their next year's phone was Animojis, and you dumb consumer cunts ate it up. So, you need to make change, i.e. move Apple back. That is good change because it means taxing them for the manufacture of everything they sell, along with the income tax and everything else. But with that change is going to come other change, which is a slightly increased price. But neither Democrats nor Republicans are willing to accept the reality that change requires change. That's why they've been deadlocked in passing continuances for the budget for, 2 decades or some stupid shit like that. Deadlocked is not a great way to have things move forward in any direction. And what we have is two parties who refuse to see a middle lane, who have been radicalized by the 1% at either end of the political spectrum, and are no longer serving the 98% in the fucking middle. And until you and everyone you know and everyone else looks at these two options and no longer says, that's a shit show, but I can't do that. Until you start voting your fucking conscience, until you start making a stand, you are not going to cause any change. Until people stop saying third-party votes are a wasted vote. It's a waste because you're a fucking coward. Because you're not willing to make the vote and stand on your morals because you're afraid you'll lose. But you can't make change without loss. You can't get healthy without losing weight. You can't win a war without losing lives. Everything has a price. There are no victories in life, only trade-offs. And with two parties that refuse to make any fucking trade-offs, nothing will ever get fixed. Anyone. I'd like to see anyone that goes, that is fucking ridiculous, but so is that. Let's make sure people have jobs and money to feed themselves and raise their children. Let's make people proud to live in this fucking country again because they're not getting fucked by the left who is flooding the fucking social welfare system with illegal immigrants, and fucked by the right who keeps giving the 1% tax breaks when they need to be paying for shit. Oh, we can't tax billionaires. They'll leave. If they leave, then you tax them more. You sanction every one of their fucking companies. We have ways to deal with this. You don't get to make all the money and give nothing back to society. And I don't give a fuck about your philanthropic fucking escapades. Stroke your fucking ego some other way. I'm talking about homeless children, homeless single mothers, people who need fucking food, and no reason that there shouldn't be a social welfare net in this fucking country to take care of those people and an actual functional process to get them from homeless to functional again. Not a fucking shelter where they can stay. Not a fucking program that feeds them. Social care. Therapy. Work fucking therapists that teach people skills or jobs. How to fucking interview properly. How to write a resume. And there are some of these. But they need to be a nationwide fucking effort. There are 400,000 unfilled manual labor jobs in this country. The last time I checked. Every one of these young men and women sitting around hopeless and destitute could fill one of those jobs. But they won't because you refuse to vote for anyone besides the left who is only focused on their fucking priorities and the right who is only focused on their priorities. We need a party that will focus on the problems and be willing to make sacrifices to solve those problems. Because you cannot solve problems without making sacrifice. I said this to my aunt the other day. And she said, I don't understand why everything is so crazy right now. I said, that's easy. Human beings refuse to make change until it's painful enough that they have to. Pain drives change. And in humanity and civilization, tragedy drives change. We knew then before 2008 that bubble mortgages were a fucking problem for, I think, 3 to 5 years before it happened. Nobody wanted to do anything. Because if you do something, it'll scare the market and it'll cause a collapse anyway. No one was willing, even though they knew the problem was continuing to get worse, to stem the fucking bleeding, because that would mean admitting that it was a problem before it collapsed. So they allowed it to get worse to avoid addressing it and going, hey, we fucked up. You know why? Because they're not going to get reelected. And as soon as the collapse happened in 2008, what happened? A flurry of bipartisan legislation about fucking bank regulation. They could have done that 3 to 5 years earlier and saved the entire fucking economy millions of dollars. Refusing to make the sacrifice to make change. We have to start being more civic-minded. You have to be more engaged. You have to know when the media is lying to you. You have to know, for instance, my favorite one, that most famous line of Trump, there are good people on both sides, is not a full quote. The full quote was, and you can go look it up, there were both people on good sides. And I'm not talking about the racist. Those people should be decried essentially at every turn. And I'm paraphrasing. But it's a nice snippet to make the racist look racist, right? If you don't stop being apathetic, if you don't stop being nonchalant, if you don't start engaging, and I don't mean watching the fucking 6 o'clock news on CNN or Fox or ABC or CNBC. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about know what's going on in your community. When you hear something, when you hear some political shit, you need 3 sources. You need a right source, a left source, and a center source. And preferably a fourth, a foreign source. If you're not doing that, I'm sorry, you're not informed. And if you're not informed, you're making decisions based on the shit other people are telling you. And a lot of times they're fucking lying. Just like that Trump quote. Is he a piece of shit? Yeah. He does plenty of shit to show that. When you lie about it, it makes you a piece of shit. It makes you less credible. But we're at a point in society today where Americans are so fucking excited to dunk on the other side that they don't care if it's true. Fuck them. They're a piece of shit. If we don't make a change, if we don't decide that neither the Democrats nor the fucking Republicans represent the American people anymore, we are going to continue to backslide. You cannot fix anything when management is broken. My wife works at a facility right now where ownership of this private facility just doesn't give a fuck. She comes home frustrated every day. She cannot change her ownership. Right? She cannot change who runs that facility. You can change who runs fucking this one. You have to stop voting left and right. Start actually listening to all of the candidates in all of the primaries. You have the time. You don't need to binge watch fucking SVU. You don't need to spend 3 hours fucking scrolling TikTok or YouTube. I know, the irony. If you would spend more of your time being engaged in educating yourself, then you could make better decisions and Here's the best part. You can help those around you make better decisions. Because you will be better informed, when someone says something, you can go, actually, that's not really what happened. This is actually what really happened. No, I'm not trying to change your opinion on whether or not Trump's a piece of shit, but this is what was actually said. In this specific instance, they're lying about him being a piece of shit. And when you can do that, you will start to move society. But you have to engage. Because they're counting on you not engaging. They're counting on you going, I hate that guy. He's the boogeyman. I'm voting for this guy. I don't give a fuck what they're talking about. I don't care that Mom Donnie absolutely can't enforce any of his fucking things he ran on. None of them. Because I like what he's saying. No, on the left, that's free shit. Everybody loves free shit. Listen, I grew up on welfare. My parents were fucking useless. Right? One was a criminal. They were both drug addicts. Like, it was a shit show. Free shit makes everybody go, yeah. Anybody ever ask you, hey, do you want a fucking sandwich? And you're like, and they're like, hey, it's free. And you're like, all right. That's essentially how liberals get their votes. And on the fucking right, you get, hey, those fucking brown people are getting kind of close to your neighborhoods, aren't they? The thing is these are all like open fucking secrets. We've all known, if you have half a brain, how all these backroom cocksuckers work for decades. We just never had this. We never had the ability to communicate as quickly and widespread as we do today. This is why you're seeing governments around the world getting overthrown by Gen Z. Nepal, Malaysia. There's been like 3 or 4 in the last fucking month. And they did it using social media. Now, mind you, I am absolutely not calling for any type of fucking regime change. Right? But I am calling for primaries. I am calling for you to go do your fucking research. Who's running? Who's running? Do you know? Or do you just know you're going to vote for a D or an R when you get in the fucking booth? Because maybe both of them are assholes and they're both taking kickbacks from companies for something or another. And there's a third member on that ballot that lives in your community that wants to make things better. And you'll dismiss her or him as inexperienced. We've all been inexperienced. And I think we can all agree that we have too much fucking experience in the government at the moment. The president's like 85 years old. Do you understand that? That's almost a century. You have senators and congresspeople who have been in office longer than I've been alive, and I'm 4 decades old. That is a problem. You cannot get old people who've been doing a job the same way for a very long time to change the way they do the fucking job. You want to end lobbying? Get rid of all the old motherfuckers who have been taking all the lobbying for the last 3 decades. Stop voting for the same fucking people. Incumbents win some gross amount of the time. Americans are so fucking apathetic that no matter how bad, on average, an incumbent is doing, they have like an 80% chance of winning re-election. Because what everyone will say is, 4 years isn't very long. We got to give them another 4 years, see what they can do. And the reason you say that is because you know the system is so fucked and everything is so impossible to get moving because no one is willing to compromise or sacrifice. That you just intrinsically understand it's almost impossible to make anything happen. I am at this point more concerned when I see shit happen than when I don't. Because I am always worried about what crazy shit did the other side have to agree to get this shit approved. And normally you have to read through like 300 to 1,500 pages of legislative fucking buffoonery to find out that they buried some fucking $1 billion payout to some fucking weapons manufacturer that 3 of the Congress people have stock in. Change requires change. And that means changing the way you think, changing your fucking habits, and changing how fucking lazy you are. And how much effort you put into your understanding of how this country runs and how it fucking affects you. How do taxes affect you? How does government shutdown affect you? 80% of Americans have no fucking idea. That's why these two assholes have been able to do nothing for decades, because 80% of you just go, oh, well, that's how it works, right? I think. I don't know. If you want to see change, you have to make changes. And if you want change to occur, you're going to have to accept loss and sacrifice for that change to occur. I really hope that we see somebody step out in 2028 and go, hey, the left's fucking lost it. The right has fucking lost it. Because I feel like a large portion of the vote that went to Trump in 2024 was a portion of people that just wanted to be able to go to fucking work, pay their bills, and not have to deal with being called a fucking racist or a misogynist or some other shit that the left had been pushing for over 10 years. I'm married to a black woman. My dad's black, and I have a trans child. These things are personal. They are not required for society to understand and or approve of. It is not an important issue when we have tens of thousands of homeless people on the streets in California and New York and all over the rest of this fucking country. We don't need to be focusing, for the right, on the stock market, because that counter doesn't show anything but how much more money is in the account of the already fairly affluent. Because even if you just own stock and you're not a billionaire, you're doing 1 billion times better than someone who lives on the street. So in my opinion, it is significantly more important to reduce the cost of housing through whatever means necessary, and increased wages through whatever means necessary, so that we can rebuild the middle class in this country, so that we can stabilize fucking society, so it is not the poors and the have-nots versus the rich and the haves. And realize that, as usual, the appropriate answer is in balance, somewhere in the fucking middle. We need a third party. We need somebody to stand out that's going to say, that's bullshit on the left and that's bullshit on the right, and this makes sense from the left and this makes sense from the right. And I really hope we see it by 2028, because the front runner right now for the Republicans is Vance. And I'm pretty sure he's mildly retarded. So here's to fucking hoping, boys and girls. And all my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Good luck out there. Thanks for listening if you hung out this long. If anyone likes this shit, I'll think about doing more long form.